In the shadowed corridors of Buckingham Palace, where whispers carry the weight of centuries, and every gesture speaks volumes about power, tradition, and belonging, a single piece of jewelry was about to rewrite the rules of royal hierarchy. The lover's knot tiara, once the most treasured possession of Princess Diana, and later worn with reverence by Queen Elizabeth herself during her most intimate family moments, sat quietly in its velvet-lined case, unaware that it was about to become the center of a royal storm that would captivate millions around the world. When Kate Middleton's fingers first touched the delicate diamonds and pearls that had adorned the heads of queens and princesses before her, she couldn't have imagined that this single act would send shockwaves through the royal family, ignite passionate debates among royal watchers, and reveal hidden tensions that had been simmering beneath the polished surface of palace life for years. This is the story of how one tiara became a symbol of acceptance, controversy, and the delicate balance between honoring the past and embracing the future in the modern British monarchy. The morning light filtered through the tall windows of the private apartments at Kensington Palace, casting long shadows across the elegant sitting room where Catherine, Princess of Wales, sat in quiet contemplation. Her fingers traced the edge of a leather-bound photo album, its pages filled with images that told the story of a family, a monarchy, and a legacy that stretched back generations. Today was different from all the others. Today, she would wear Queen Elizabeth's most cherished tiara for the first time since the beloved monarch's passing. The call had come 3 days earlier from Sir Clive Alderton, private secretary to King Charles. His voice carried the formal tone reserved for matters of state, yet there was something else beneath the surface, a warmth that suggested this was more than mere protocol. The king, he explained, had personally requested that Catherine wear the lover's knot tiara to the upcoming state banquet honoring the visiting president of France. It was a gesture that spoke volumes in the silent language of royal tradition. Catherine closed her eyes and allowed her mind to drift back to the first time she had seen the tiara in person. It was during her engagement to Prince William, and Queen Elizabeth had invited her for a private viewing of the crown jewels collection housed within the Tower of London's restricted vaults. The Queen, dressed in a simple gray dress with her signature pearl necklace, had moved through the collection with the ease of someone who had lived among these treasures her entire life. "Each piece tells a story, my dear," the Queen had said, her voice carrying the weight of decades of experience. "They are not mere ornaments, but repositories of memory, tradition, and the unbroken chain that connects us to those who came before." Her gloved hands had lifted the lover's knot tiara with reverent care, the diamonds catching the light, and sending rainbow reflections dancing across the walls of the secure chamber. The tiara itself was a masterpiece of Victorian craftsmanship, created in 1914 by Garrard and Company for Queen Mary. Its design was inspired by a tiara owned by her grandmother, Princess Augusta of Hesse-Darmstadt, but executed with a grandeur that befitted the British royal collection. 19 Baroque pearls, each perfectly matched and lustrous, hung from diamond lover's knot bows, while the base was set with countless brilliant cut diamonds that created an almost ethereal glow when worn. Queen Elizabeth had received the tiara as a wedding gift from Queen Mary in 1947, and it had become one of her most frequently worn pieces during the early years of her reign. Photographs from the 1950s and 1960s showed the young queen wearing it to state dinners, official portraits, and ceremonial occasions, the pearls swaying gently as she moved with the grace and dignity that would define her 7-decade reign. But the tiara's most famous chapter began in 1981 when Queen Elizabeth loaned it to her new daughter-in-law, Lady Diana Spencer. The sight of Diana wearing the lover's knot tiara on her wedding day, its pearls catching the light as she walked down the aisle of St. Paul's Cathedral, had been broadcast to an estimated 750 million people worldwide. For the next 16 years, until her tragic death in 1997, Diana wore the tiara to countless royal engagements, making it as much a part of her public image as her compassionate nature and revolutionary approach to royal duty. The parallels between Diana's story and Catherine's own journey were not lost on anyone within royal circles. Both had been commoners who married into the royal family. Both had faced intense media scrutiny from the moment their relationships with their respective princes became public knowledge, and Both had been required to navigate the complex waters of royal protocol while maintaining their own sense of identity and purpose. Catherine's relationship with Queen Elizabeth had developed slowly but steadily over the years. The Queen, known for her reserved nature and careful judgment of character, had initially maintained a polite but distant relationship with her grandson's girlfriend. Palace insiders later revealed that the Queen had been concerned about the length of William and Catherine's courtship, privately worrying that the young woman might not possess the fortitude necessary for a lifetime of royal duty. Those concerns had been gradually dispelled as Catherine proved herself time and again. Her composure during their engagement interview, her grace under the unprecedented media attention surrounding their wedding, and her natural ability to connect with people from all walks of life had impressed even the most skeptical members of the royal household. The Queen's growing affection for Catherine became evident in small but significant gestures: invitations to private family gatherings, the loan of personal jewelry for official engagements, and, most tellingly, the decision to grant Catherine the title of Duchess of Cambridge rather than simply Princess William of Wales. The turning point in their relationship had come during a weekend at Balmoral Castle in 2012, just over a year after Catherine's marriage to William. The Queen had invited Catherine to join her for a private walk through the estate's extensive gardens, a privilege rarely extended to family members, let alone those who had married into the family. They had walked in comfortable silence for much of the journey, the Queen occasionally pointing out features of the landscape or sharing anecdotes about the estate's history. It was during this walk that the Queen had first broached the subject of Diana's legacy and Catherine's role in preserving it. "The public will always compare you to her," the Queen had said, her voice matter-of-fact but not unkind. "It is inevitable, and you must not let it burden you unduly. Diana had her own gifts, her own way of touching people's lives. You must find your own path, but honor her memory in doing so." Catherine had been moved by the Queen's words, recognizing in them both a warning and a blessing. The Queen understood the challenges that lay ahead, the constant scrutiny and comparison that would define Catherine's public life, but she was also offering her support and guidance in navigating those challenges. The years that followed had seen Catherine grow into her role with increasing confidence and skill. Her work with mental health charities, her dedication to early childhood development, and her natural rapport with children and young people had earned her widespread public approval and media praise. More importantly, from the Queen's perspective, Catherine had proven herself to be a stabilizing influence on William and a devoted mother to her 3 children. The Queen's approval of Catherine had been demonstrated in numerous ways over the years. In 2016, she had personally chosen to loan Catherine the Cartier Halo Tiara for her wedding day, a piece that had been purchased by her father, the future King George VI, for her mother in 1936. The choice was significant, as it represented the Queen's confidence in Catherine's ability to honor royal tradition while making it her own. 2 years later, the Queen had made another meaningful gesture by appointing Catherine to the Royal Victorian Order, a dynastic order of knighthood established in 1896 by Queen Victoria to recognize distinguished personal service to the monarchy. The appointment was entirely at the Queen's personal discretion and was seen as a clear indication of her satisfaction with Catherine's contribution to the royal family. But perhaps the most significant demonstration of the Queen's trust in Catherine had come in 2019, when she was granted permission to wear Queen Mary's diamond Riviere necklace to a state banquet at Buckingham Palace. The necklace, a stunning piece featuring 34 brilliant cut diamonds, had been a particular favorite of Queen Elizabeth and was rarely loaned to other family members. Catherine's selection to wear it was interpreted by royal watchers as evidence of her elevated status within the family hierarchy. Now, as Catherine prepared to don the lover's knot tiara for the first time since Queen Elizabeth's death, she was acutely aware of the weight of history that came with the privilege. The tiara represented not just Queen Elizabeth's personal taste and style, but also her trust in Catherine's ability to carry forward the traditions and values that had defined the monarchy for generations. The decision to loan Catherine the tiara had not been made lightly. King Charles, in consultation with his private secretary and senior members of the royal household, had spent considerable time discussing the appropriateness of the gesture. Some advisors had suggested that it might be too soon after the Queen's death to see another family member wearing her most personal jewelry. Others had argued that doing so would be a powerful symbol of continuity and the monarchy's enduring nature. In the end, it was the king's personal relationship with Catherine that had swayed the decision. Over the years, Charles had developed a deep affection for his daughter-in-law, admiring her work ethic, her dedication to her royal duties, and her evident love for his son and grandchildren. He recognized that Catherine represented the future of the monarchy in many ways, and he wanted to demonstrate his confidence in her ability to honor his mother's legacy while helping to guide the institution into a new era. The announcement that Catherine would wear the lover's knot tiara to the state banquet had been made quietly, without fanfare or official statement. It was the kind of decision that spoke volumes to those who understood the subtle communications of royal protocol, but which might pass unnoticed by casual observers. However, those within royal circles understood its significance immediately. Lady Susan Hussey, who had served as Queen Elizabeth's lady-in-waiting for more than 60 years, had been among the first to comment on the decision when word began to circulate within palace circles. Her Majesty always believed that her jewelry should be worn and appreciated, not simply stored away. She had confided to a close friend. She would be pleased to know that the tiara is being worn by someone who understands its significance and will honor it appropriately. The sentiment was echoed by other longtime royal staff members and courtiers, many of whom had watched Catherine's evolution from nervous newcomer to confident royal professional. They recognized in her the same qualities that had made Queen Elizabeth so effective in her role: a genuine sense of duty, an ability to connect with people from all backgrounds, and an understanding that royal privilege came with equally significant responsibilities. As the day of the state banquet approached, Catherine found herself thinking not just about the honor of wearing the Queen's tiara, but about the broader implications of the gesture. She understood that her appearance at the banquet would be scrutinized by media outlets around the world, that every detail of her appearance would be analyzed and interpreted by royal watchers and fashion experts alike. But more than that, she knew that she would be representing not just herself or even the royal family, but the continuity of an institution that had provided stability and continuity to the British people for more than 1,000 years. The weight of that responsibility was both daunting and inspiring. Catherine had always taken her royal duties seriously, but there was something about wearing Queen Elizabeth's personal jewelry that made the connection to history feel more immediate and tangible. She was not just borrowing a beautiful piece of jewelry for an evening. She was temporarily becoming a custodian of a legacy that stretched back through generations of queens and princesses who had worn these same diamonds and pearls in service to their country and their people. As she sat in her sitting room that morning, Catherine reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. From her childhood in Berkshire to her university years at St. Andrews, from her early relationship with William to their eventual marriage and the birth of their children, each step had been leading to this point where she would literally wear the crown jewels as a symbol of her place within the royal family and her commitment to its future. The transformation had not always been easy. There had been moments of doubt, times when the pressure of constant scrutiny had felt overwhelming, and occasions when she had questioned whether she was truly suited for the role that fate and love had thrust upon her. But, with the support of William, the guidance of Queen Elizabeth, and her own inner strength, she had found her way and made her mark as a modern royal who could honor tradition while also bringing fresh perspectives and approaches to her work. Now, as she prepared to take on this new symbol of her status and responsibilities, Catherine felt a profound sense of both privilege and purpose. The lover's knot tiara would crown not just her head, but her emergence as one of the most senior and trusted members of the royal family, someone worthy of carrying forward Queen Elizabeth's most cherished possessions and the values they represented. The morning of the state banquet dawned crisp and clear, with autumn sunlight streaming through the windows of the private dressing room at Buckingham Palace, where Catherine was preparing for one of the most significant royal engagements of her life. The room, which had once served as Queen Elizabeth's personal preparation space, was filled with the quiet efficiency of her styling team, but underneath the professional calm lay an undercurrent of anticipation that seemed to touch everyone present. Angela Kelly, who had served as Queen Elizabeth's personal assistant and senior dresser for nearly 3 decades, stood beside the ornate mirror, holding a red leather case that bore the insignia of the crown jewelers. Her hands, weathered from years of caring for the most precious items in the royal collection, trembled slightly as she opened the case to reveal the lover's knot tiara in all its glittering splendor. "I dressed Her Majesty in this tiara more than 50 times over the years," Angela said softly, her voice carrying the weight of decades of intimate royal service. She always said that wearing it made her feel connected to Queen Mary and to all the queens who had come before her. "Today, that connection continues through you, Your Royal Highness." Catherine nodded, understanding the profound responsibility that came with wearing a piece that had adorned the heads of 3 generations of royal women. As Angela began the careful process of securing the tiara to Catherine's elaborately styled hair, the Princess of Wales found her thoughts drifting to Princess Diana and the complex legacy that surrounded the beautiful piece of jewelry. The relationship between Diana and the lover's knot tiara had been both intimate and complicated. When the Queen first offered it to her new daughter-in-law in 1981, Diana had been overwhelmed by the gesture and the weight of royal tradition it represented. Royal biographer Andrew Morton later revealed that Diana had initially felt intimidated by the tiara's grandeur and the expectations that came with wearing such a significant piece from the royal collection. Diana's first public appearance in the tiara had been at a state banquet in honor of King Fahd of Saudi Arabia in June 1982, just 11 months after her fairy tale wedding to Prince Charles. Photographs from that evening showed a young woman still finding her footing in royal life, her natural beauty enhanced by the magnificent tiara, but her expression revealing hints of the uncertainty she felt in her new role. Over the years that followed, Diana's relationship with the tiara evolved as she grew into her position as Princess of Wales and developed her own sense of royal style and purpose. She wore it to dozens of state occasions, gala dinners, and ceremonial events, each appearance adding new layers to its story and cementing its association with her public image. The tiara had been present during some of Diana's most significant moments as a royal. She wore it to the state banquet celebrating the visit of President and Mrs. Reagan in 1988, where her animated conversation with the former Hollywood actor and his wife had charmed both the American visitors and the British public. The pearls had swayed gently as she laughed at President Reagan's stories, creating a moment of spontaneous warmth that exemplified Diana's gift for bringing humanity to formal royal occasions. It had adorned her head during the tense dinner following the revelation of Prince Charles's affair with Camilla Parker Bowles, where royal photographers captured images of Diana looking every inch the dignified princess despite the personal turmoil she was enduring. The tiara seemed to give her strength and composure during one of the most challenging periods of her life, serving as both a crown and a shield against the public scrutiny of her failing marriage. Diana's last public appearance in the lover's knot tiara had been at a state banquet for President Mandela of South Africa in July 1996, just over a year before her tragic death in Paris. By then, she had been divorced from Prince Charles for several months, but she remained a member of the royal family and continued to carry out official duties. The photographs from that evening showed a woman who had found her confidence and her voice, wearing the tiara with an ease and grace that spoke to her evolution from nervous young bride to accomplished royal professional. The comparison between Diana's journey and Catherine's own experience as a royal wife and mother was inevitable, but it was also something that Catherine had learned to navigate with increasing skill and confidence over the years. From the moment her relationship with Prince William became public knowledge, she had been subjected to constant comparisons with his mother, with media outlets and royal watchers analyzing everything from her fashion choices to her charitable interests for echoes of Diana's influence. Initially, these comparisons had been a source of stress and pressure for Catherine. She understood that she could never replace Diana in the public's affection, nor did she want to try. Diana had been a unique figure who had touched millions of lives through her compassion, her advocacy for marginalized communities, and her revolutionary approach to royal duty. Catherine's challenge was to honor Diana's memory while establishing her own identity and making her own contributions to the monarchy and the causes she cared about. The turning point in Catherine's relationship with Diana's legacy had come through her work with mental health charities and her advocacy for destigmatizing conversations about emotional well-being. Diana had been a pioneer in this area, using her position and platform to draw attention to issues like depression, eating disorders, and the psychological impact of illness and trauma. Catherine's decision to make mental health one of her primary areas of focus was both a natural extension of her own interests and experiences, and a conscious choice to continue Diana's work in a way that felt authentic to her own personality and capabilities. William had been instrumental in helping Catherine navigate these complex dynamics. He understood better than anyone the weight of his mother's legacy and the challenges that came with being constantly compared to someone who had achieved almost mythical status in the public imagination. But he also recognized that Catherine brought her own strengths and perspectives to her royal role, qualities that complemented rather than competed with Diana's memory. "My mother would have adored Catherine," William had said in a rare personal interview several years earlier. "She would have been proud to see how Catherine has embraced royal life while staying true to herself." The comparisons are inevitable, but they miss the point. Catherine isn't trying to be my mother. She's being herself, and that's exactly what my mother would have wanted. The decision to offer Catherine the lover's knot tiara had been discussed extensively within the royal family, with particular attention paid to William's feelings about seeing another woman wear his mother's most iconic piece of jewelry. Royal sources later revealed that William had not only supported the decision, but had actively encouraged it, viewing it as a fitting tribute to both his mother's memory and his wife's growing importance within the royal family. Prince Harry's reaction to the decision had been more complex. Still grieving his grandmother's death and dealing with the ongoing tensions surrounding his relationship with the royal family, Harry had initially expressed reservations about seeing Diana's tiara worn by someone else so soon after Queen Elizabeth's passing. However, after private conversations with his father and brother, he had come to support the gesture as a meaningful way to honor both women's contributions to the monarchy. The public's anticipation for Catherine's appearance in the tiara had been building steadily since word of the decision began to circulate in royal circles. Social media platforms buzzed with speculation about how she would style the piece, what dress she would choose to complement it, and what the overall impact of the look would be. Fashion experts and royal commentators offered their predictions and analysis, while jewelry historians provided detailed explanations of the tiara's design and significance. Diana's former personal secretary, Patrick Jeffson, had been among those asked to comment on the decision. His response had been measured but supportive, acknowledging the emotional weight of seeing the tiara worn by someone new while expressing confidence that Catherine would honor its legacy appropriately. The Princess of Wales understood that her jewelry was not simply personal adornment, but an extension of her public role, Jeffson had explained to a television interviewer. She would have wanted these pieces to continue being worn and appreciated by future generations of royal women. The Duchess of Cambridge has proven herself to be someone who understands both the privilege and the responsibility that comes with wearing such historically significant pieces. The physical process of preparing to wear the tiara was itself a complex undertaking that required careful planning and expertise. The piece weighed nearly 2 pounds, with the majority of that weight concentrated in the diamond-encrusted base that would rest on Catherine's head. Angela Kelly and her team had spent hours practicing the precise placement and securing techniques that would ensure the tiara remained stable throughout the evening's events, which would include a formal receiving line, a 3-course dinner, speeches, and dancing. Catherine's hair had been styled in an elaborate updo that would provide the necessary foundation for the tiara while also complementing its design. The style, created by her longtime hairdresser Amanda Cook Tucker, was inspired by classic royal hairstyles from the 1950s and 1960s, but updated with modern techniques and subtle contemporary touches. The goal was to create a look that would showcase the tiara's beauty while also reflecting Catherine's personal style and the formal nature of the occasion. The dress chosen to accompany the tiara was equally significant in its selection and design. Catherine had worked with her fashion team to select a gown that would complement the tiara's vintage glamour while also reflecting current fashion trends and her own sophisticated aesthetic. The final choice was a midnight blue velvet gown by one of her favorite British designers, featuring a classic silhouette with subtle modern details that perfectly balanced tradition and innovation. The jewelry that would complete the ensemble had been chosen with equal care and attention to detail. In addition to the lover's knot tiara, Catherine would wear Queen Elizabeth's diamond Riviere necklace, the same piece she had worn to great acclaim in 2019, along with matching diamond earrings from the royal collection. The combination of pieces would create a cohesive look that honored royal tradition while showcasing Catherine's sophisticated understanding of formal jewelry styling. As the final preparations continued, Catherine found herself thinking about the women who had worn the tiara before her and the different contexts in which it had appeared throughout its history. Queen Mary had commissioned it during the height of the Edwardian era, when elaborate jewelry was seen as an essential element of royal presentation and a symbol of Britain's imperial power and prosperity. Queen Elizabeth had worn it during the early decades of her reign, when the monarchy was adapting to the changing social and political landscape of post-war Britain. Diana had made it her own during the tumultuous 1980s and 1990s, when the royal family faced unprecedented scrutiny and criticism, and when her own personal struggles played out in the global spotlight. Each woman had brought her own personality and circumstances to the piece, adding new chapters to its story while respecting the traditions and values it represented. Now it was Catherine's turn to write the next chapter in the tiara's history. As she prepared to step into the spotlight wearing Queen Elizabeth's most cherished piece, she understood that she was not just putting on a beautiful piece of jewelry, but assuming a role as a guardian of royal tradition and a bridge between the monarchy's illustrious past and its uncertain but promising future. The doors to the blue drawing room at Buckingham Palace opened with ceremonial precision at exactly 7:30 that evening, and Catherine, Princess of Wales, stepped into the golden light of the state reception, wearing Queen Elizabeth's beloved lover's knot tiara for the first time since the monarch's death. The moment was electric with anticipation, as nearly 200 distinguished guests, members of the diplomatic corps, government officials, and senior royals turned to witness this historic appearance. The collective intake of breath that followed was audible even above the gentle murmur of conversation and the soft strains of classical music provided by the string quartet positioned discreetly in the corner of the ornate room. Catherine moved with the grace and confidence that had become her signature, but there was something different about her presence that evening, something that spoke to the profound significance of the moment and the weight of tradition she carried upon her shoulders. King Charles, resplendent in his military dress uniform adorned with the Order of the Garter Regalia, watched his daughter-in-law's entrance with visible emotion. Those close to the king later revealed that he had been moved to tears by the sight of Catherine wearing his mother's tiara, seeing in that moment both a tribute to Queen Elizabeth's memory and a powerful symbol of the monarchy's continuity. The king's expression reflected a complex mixture of grief for his recently departed mother, pride in Catherine's evolution as a royal, and hope for the future of the institution he now led. Prince William stood beside his father, his own emotions carefully controlled but clearly affected by seeing his wife wear the piece so closely associated with his mother's memory. The Prince of Wales had been intimately involved in the decision to loan Catherine the tiara, understanding both the honor it represented and the emotional complexity it would inevitably create. As Catherine approached the receiving line where they would greet the evening's honored guests, William's proud smile spoke volumes about his confidence in his wife's ability to honor both his mother's legacy and his grandmother's memory. The French President Emmanuel Macron and his wife Brigitte were the evening's guests of honor, and their reaction to Catherine's appearance was one of genuine admiration and respect. President Macron, known for his appreciation of protocol and ceremonial tradition, later commented privately that Catherine's presentation had been absolutely magnificent and a perfect embodiment of British royal tradition at its finest. Madame Macron, herself a connoisseur of fashion and style, was observed studying every detail of Catherine's ensemble with obvious appreciation. But it was the reaction of the media representatives present that truly captured the historic nature of the moment. Royal photographers, who had covered countless state occasions and witnessed dozens of significant royal moments, found themselves working with unusual intensity to capture every angle and detail of Catherine's appearance. The images they produced would be transmitted around the world within hours, appearing on front pages and television screens from London to Tokyo, from New York to Sydney. Helena Morrison, a veteran royal photographer who had covered the monarchy for more than 30 years, later described the moment as absolutely electrifying. She explained, "You could feel the weight of history in that room. Everyone present understood that we were witnessing something truly special, a moment that would be remembered and discussed for decades to come." The way Catherine wore that tiara, with such dignity and natural grace, it was as if she had been born to wear it. The tiara itself seemed to come alive under the brilliant lighting of the state reception room. The diamonds caught and reflected the light from the magnificent chandeliers overhead, creating a subtle but constant sparkle that drew the eye and emphasized the piece's exquisite craftsmanship. The 19 Baroque pearls swayed gently as Catherine moved, their lustrous surface reflecting the warm tones of her complexion and the deep blue of her velvet gown. Fashion experts and jewelry historians watching the event immediately began analyzing every aspect of Catherine's presentation. The way she had chosen to style her hair allowed the tiara's design to be fully appreciated while also showcasing her own classical beauty. The selection of the diamond Riviere necklace to complement the tiara demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of formal jewelry coordination that drew praise from style commentators around the world. Susie Minks, the influential fashion journalist and royal style expert, was among those who offered immediate commentary on Catherine's appearance. Writing for her international audience, she observed, "The Duchess of Cambridge has achieved something remarkable tonight. She has taken a piece of jewelry so closely associated with Princess Diana and made it entirely her own, while still honoring its history and significance. This is royal style at its most sophisticated and meaningful." But beyond the fashion and jewelry considerations, what truly captured public attention was the emotional resonance of seeing the lover's knot tiara worn once again by a senior member of the royal family. Social media platforms exploded with reactions from royal watchers, fashion enthusiasts, and ordinary members of the public who were moved by the sight of Catherine wearing Queen Elizabeth's cherished piece. The hashtag Lovers Not Tiara began trending worldwide within hours of the first photographs being released, with thousands of users sharing their thoughts, memories, and emotions about seeing the historic piece worn again. Many of the comments reflected a deep appreciation for the continuity it represented, with users expressing how seeing Catherine in the tiara helped them process their grief over Queen Elizabeth's death, while also giving them hope for the future of the monarchy. One particularly moving social media post came from a teacher in Manchester who wrote, "My grandmother always said that Queen Elizabeth's tiaras were like family heirlooms that belonged to all of us. Seeing Catherine wear the lover's knot tonight feels like watching a treasured family piece passed down to the next generation. It's beautiful and heartbreaking and hopeful all at once." The evening's formal dinner proceeded with all the pomp and ceremony expected of a state banquet, but the underlying current of excitement about Catherine's appearance continued throughout the event. Fellow guests were observed stealing glances at the Princess of Wales throughout the meal, many clearly fascinated by the opportunity to see such a famous piece of jewelry up close. The seating arrangement for the dinner had been carefully planned to honor both protocol and the significance of the occasion. Catherine was seated between President Macron and the Archbishop of Canterbury, a positioning that reflected both her senior status within the royal family and her role as a bridge between the monarchy's ceremonial traditions and its modern relevance. Her conversation with both men was animated and engaging, demonstrating the poise and intelligence that had made her such an effective royal representative. During the formal toasts that followed the meal, King Charles made specific reference to the continuity represented by the evening's gathering and the importance of maintaining strong relationships between nations and institutions across generations. While he did not explicitly mention Catherine's choice to wear his mother's tiara, those present understood the subtext of his remarks and their connection to the visual symbolism she represented. The French president's responding toast included gracious comments about the timeless elegance and dignity of the British royal family, remarks that were widely interpreted as praise for Catherine's presentation and the way she embodied the best traditions of royal hospitality and style. The diplomatic success of the evening was evident in the warm interactions between the British and French delegations, with Catherine's presence and appearance contributing significantly to the positive atmosphere. As the evening progressed to include dancing and more informal socializing, Catherine's comfort with wearing the tiara became increasingly apparent. What might have seemed like a daunting prospect earlier in the day had evolved into a natural and confident presentation that impressed even the most experienced royal watchers present. She moved through the reception rooms with ease, engaging in conversations with guests from around the world while the tiara remained perfectly positioned and secure. Lady Susan Hussey, Queen Elizabeth's longest-serving lady-in-waiting, was observed watching Catherine throughout the evening with obvious satisfaction and approval. Later, she would confide to close friends that seeing Catherine wear the lover's knot tiara had been exactly what Her Majesty would have wanted, and that the Princess of Wales had honored both the piece and its history beautifully. The international media coverage of the evening was unprecedented in both its scope and its positive tone. News outlets from around the world led with photographs of Catherine in the tiara, with many describing the moment as historic, elegant, and deeply moving. The unanimous praise for her presentation reflected not just appreciation for her personal style, but recognition of her growing importance within the royal family and her effectiveness as a representative of British values and traditions. Royal biographer Robert Hardman, who was present at the banquet as a member of the media, later wrote about the evening in his column for a major British newspaper. What we witnessed tonight was more than just a beautiful woman wearing a spectacular piece of jewelry, he observed. We saw the monarchy's ability to honor its past while embracing its future, to maintain its traditions while remaining relevant and meaningful to contemporary audiences. The Princess of Wales has become the embodiment of that balance. The symbolic power of the evening extended beyond the immediate participants and observers. For millions of people around the world who had admired Queen Elizabeth and mourned her passing, seeing Catherine wear the beloved monarch's tiara provided a sense of continuity and comfort. It demonstrated that the values and traditions Queen Elizabeth had championed would continue to be preserved and honored by future generations of royals. Television coverage of the state banquet reached estimated audiences of more than 100 million people worldwide, making it one of the most-watched royal events in recent years. The sustained focus on Catherine's appearance and the tiara's history provided educational opportunities for viewers to learn about royal traditions, the significance of ceremonial jewelry, and the ways in which the monarchy uses symbolism to communicate important messages about continuity, respect, and national identity. As the evening drew to a close and the final guests departed Buckingham Palace, Catherine remained in the reception rooms for several additional minutes, taking time to speak privately with senior palace staff who had served Queen Elizabeth for decades. These conversations, witnessed by only a few people, were described as deeply emotional and meaningful, with longtime royal employees expressing their gratitude for the way Catherine had honored their former employer's memory. The successful conclusion of the evening represented more than just a diplomatic triumph or a fashion moment. It marked Catherine's full emergence as a senior royal capable of